So I'll start by introducing our key speaker, Mary Kathryn Hollifield. She's practice manager, South Asia, agriculture and food global practices from the World Bank. Ms. Kathryn Hollifield is an economist specializing in agriculture and natural resource management. She started her career in the Canadian Public Service in the Federal Departments of Employment and Immigration and Finance. Kathryn has worked at the World Bank in various capacities for over 21 years, serving as senior advisor to the Canadian representative on the World Bank Executive Board, as senior economist in the Central Policy Department, and as country program coordinator in the Africa and East Pacific regions. Kathryn now serves as agriculture practice manager in the South Asia region, providing leadership and oversight to the agriculture and livelihood programs in India and Sri Lanka. Quite a prestigious bio, and I think when we have a lot of these really prestigious panelists, the bios are quite impressive. And I'm really happy to pass on the bench to Kathryn, which, by the way, I'm also a Canadian from Montreal, so happy to see Canadians online. Yeah, so up to you, Kathryn, and take it forward. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for your very kind introduction. I'd also like to appreciate the partnership that we have with LEAD at Krea University, and specifically also with the Ministry of Rural Development. And in this regard, I'd like to welcome in particular Secretary Sinha. I realize now that he has recently joined the MORD, but he brings with him his extensive experience from Jharkhand, and I'm really looking forward to hearing his views and to engaging with him, not just today, but going forward in the very critical areas of rural development in India. Let me start by just putting in context a little bit where we see with the world around us facing such a big crisis, such an amazing crisis, with the opportunities wrapped up in it as well. We have seen that the COVID-19 pandemic has challenged the strength and resilience of countries worldwide. And it's not just, countries. We know very much that it's the cities, it's the rural areas, it's the communities, and even families that have been directly affected by the tragedy of the virus. But we've also seen how it has highlighted some of the weaknesses inherent in all countries, in health systems, in economies, in supply chains, and indeed in the social fabric of these countries. But I really don't want to just focus on the negative, because I think we've also seen some very bright spots along the way. And here is where, amid this difficult context, I would like to very specifically recognize the strength and resilience of micro enterprises in particular. They have responded and reacted to the current challenge by very quickly and flexibly addressing local needs, by being able to adjust their business models to meet market demands related to things like food supply, masks, other essential items. It's been really incredible watching these communities come together and respond. They've been able to show a flexibility and agility on par with successful businesses anywhere, and in fact often have been much more flexible and resilient. They really are this bright spot in a currently tense and stressed environment. This includes marketable skills, opportunities for enterprises to grow, and increased access to jobs and earning power. The World Bank works with the Government of India across a number of programs related to enterprise development, agriculture and food, and rural development, including the famous, globally famous National Rural Livelihoods Mission. NRLM is a platform to learn from widespread approaches to empower the poor through transformational approaches to livelihoods. Crowding in and leveraging the experiences of private sector players like Mindtree and government players like Kudumbashree is part of this process. From the management of metro stations in Kerala to the DDK Rasoi cafeterias managed by self-help groups in Bihar, and the range of artisanal clusters supported across the country, the NRLM has been at the forefront of India's rural entrepreneurship story. As we rebuild, it is also critical that we engage with new partners, such as impact investors, social enterprises, fintech firms, e-commerce players, incubators, and the mainstream private sector to design shared value initiatives at scale and to help micro-entrepreneurs become even more engines of growth to sustain local economies and realize their full potential. this is vibrant local communities, and in particular rural communities, do have a key role to play in this critical process of transformation across the globe. I'm always struck how, when I look at India and when I look at my own background from Canada, how critically important communities and indeed rural communities continue to be, not only in the economic life of countries, but also in the social fabric. This is very much part of the history with agriculture, the history with vibrant rural areas is very, very much sort of a touchstone in terms of defining who we are as people as well. So I don't want to lose that larger element as well, as the support is there for the transformation of these countries and for the continued process of renewal. Against this backdrop, I'd like to highlight that the World Bank, in collaboration with LEAD at Krea University and the Ministry of Rural Development, is organizing this critical 3-part webinar series that's convening policymakers, practitioners, and experts from industry and academia. And I'd very much like to welcome the range of people that are joining us virtually today. These webinars will delve into the deeper issues faced by rural enterprises and suggest suitable policy measures to overcome and indeed continue to accelerate and to amplify the kind of impact that we've already seen from these institutions and communities in the shadow of the COVID-19 impacts. This webinar will focus on the resilience and response of enterprises, home-based and growth enterprises in rural areas, to reorient their production systems and to adapt to the lockdown and be well poised as countries reopen. We will hear about strategies to sustain and grow these enterprises, and we hope that through these discussions we will also learn about how to ensure that these models are better understood for their value in building the economic agency of rural households and sharing this across the globe, enabling this very strong platform that is so worldwide known for India, that those lessons actually can help amplify and build lives of others across the globe. In closing, I would very much like to thank everybody who has joined us today in this virtual discussion, and in particular, our esteemed panelists and speakers. Again, a big welcome and hello to Secretary Sinha, and also our colleagues from Kudumbashree, Rangasutra Crafts India, and Madhya Pradesh's SRLM. So again, thank you. I'm very much looking forward to the discussions, and back over to you, Sharon.
Thank you, Kathryn. You made my job much, much easier, actually. Every point I want to mention, and I'm really looking forward to this meeting. So I just want to highlight a few things. From our experience on the ground, LEAD is well known to be sort of like really tapped into what's going on, almost as a direct channel, a filter that goes. It's been first horrifying at the beginning, and then the discovery of things that have been heartening in a sense that you think, whatever we think would be disastrous is not necessarily. Whatever things worked well are not working, so some cracks have been amplified. One thing that you tapped into, and we're talking about, resilience, was one of the biggest things I think that we see, that we have an assumption that people probably in poverty are also like a little bit enabled to survive, in a sense, that they need such an exterior thing. And one thing we've learned is the ability of these micro enterprises to be very resilient and quick to adapt and be flexible, whether it's an organization that went and decided to do masks, or a service organization that was a cleaner and now they became like deep cleaning or like self sanitizer and things like that. We've also had our nose on the ground in terms of being in research to understand quickly, how to get insights in actually how people are moving in light of this. Actually, one of the recent study that we've done with enterprise clusters was to understand as well the sentiment of micro businesses. And when they display their stories, like, they had to dip into cash reserves a significant amount, they had to take loans. When you ask them if there are sentiment of recovery, 80% are pretty optimistic about the future, despite thinking that it'll take them 6 months to build back their business. So for us, my sense is, let us take an opportunity, how they can be so optimistic, what are their levers, what are their mechanisms that they have in place that we might not realize, how can we help them better understand on the ground, and how can we utilize this insight after that to devise strategies, even post-recovery, find solutions taken advantage of this incredible ability for them to adapt and achieve much quicker than we would have thought. Some of the things I noticed, and I've talking sometimes, the ability for some of the micro businesses to find funds that they required quickly, to convert, to retain their staff, to pay salary, those are really interesting anecdotes that we can take across. So I'm very interested in hearing, from everybody their experience. We have a really prestigious panel, which means as well as you'll have to bear with me because I'll have to read fabulous bios. So I have a 5 minutes of bio reading. So I'll just discuss our 4 panelists along with their vice. So we have Mr. Nath Sinha, Secretary, Ministry of Rural Development. So Mr. Nath Sinha has recently taken charge as the Secretary of the Department of Rural Development at the Ministry of Rural Development. Prior to this, he was with the Department of Border Management and has served in the state of Jharkhand in departments including PWD, Mines, Industry, IT, among others. He has, to his credit, several landmark projects in Jharkhand, including Mega Sports Complex in Games Village in Ranchi Road, and State Data Center. He has been instrumental in development of several policies and documents. PWD Code 2012, Public-Private Partnership Policy. Mr. Sinha is a 1987 batch of IS officers from Jharkhand, Katherine. So welcome to the panel. I also have Mr. S. Harikishore, Executive Director, Kudumbashree. Mr. Harikishore is also an IS officer from 2008 batch, Kerala, along with working with the Governor of Kerala for more than 3 years as assistant and sub-collector. He was the director at Kerala Tourism Department for more than 2 years. Mr. Harikishore is the recipient of several awards, including Best State Collector by the Governor of Kerala and the Governor of Kerala Revenue Department. He has authored 2 self-help books in Malayalam and columns in the Mathrumbi GK and Manorama magazine, a Malayalam newspaper that is published from Kerala. And as well as we all know, in light of the COVID-19, I think Kerala has fared really well quickly to flatten the curve. So I congratulate that state as well. I've always admired the health system. Being as a Canadian where we know the health system is free, I see that the efforts in Kerala and that system in making it efficient is always something I found admirable. Then we have another very prestigious person, Sumita Ghose, founder and director of Rangasutra Crafts India. Ms. Sumita Ghose is the founder and managing director at Rangasutra, a community-owned handicraft and handloom businesses. We have 2,200 artisans and direct shareholders. The company creates opportunities for inclusive growth in rural India through design, production, and sale of handicraft products based on principles of fair trade and a celebration of India's rich craft heritage. Prior to setting up Rangasutra, Sumita lived and worked in different parts of rural India for many years, mostly in Western Rajasthan with the URMUL Trust, working with rural communities for social change and economic development. She was a Fulbright scholar in the United States, where she completed a master's degree in conflict resolution. Sumita was also a recipient of the MacArthur Fellowship for Leadership and is among the first batch of the CIA Aspen Fellows. Welcome, and I look forward to hear about Sumita. And lastly, Raman Wadhwa, Deputy CEO, Madhya Pradesh State Rural Livelihoods Mission. Mr. Raman Wadhwa, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, is the Deputy CEO of Madhya Pradesh State Rural Livelihoods Mission. He is livelihoods and value chain expert with about 20 years of working experience in rural areas. He has been with core government in initial years of service and thereafter joined the World Bank project. He has extensively worked at the grassroots levels in a cluster of villages for promoting and creating livelihoods and job opportunities for the rural poor. His specialization is in procurement goods and services as per bilateral and multilateral agencies' procurement norms. During these tough times as well, he had the opportunity to work closely at the state policy level to create a stable environment for the self-help groups and their member enterprise and livelihoods promotion. He has received training in value chain and agriculture partnership models. So thank you very much, and welcome as well, Mr. Raman. So without further ado, I will pass it on to Honorable Mr. Nath Sinha to take us forward with his discussion, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, Moderator, and the panelists. I request the PowerPoint that I had sent to be put up on the screen, if that is possible. So before I start this slide on, so I would like to mention that as a context, we should have to recognize that during the lockdown period, all also the agriculture activities continued to happen, the harvestings and the plantations, etc., continued to happen. The procurement operations went on. So, in terms of the liquidity availability in the rural areas, has been affected, but has not been so much affected to the extent what has happened in the urban areas. But for us, the inverse is largely the rural areas and the rural enterprises. Therefore, we feel that though they have been affected to some extent, but not a large extent, and therefore we can contextualize the discussion in that regard. So let me take you with some of the programs which are part of the NRLM and how they have helped, and then we come and explain and examine how has this lockdown affected and what are the long-term, short-term, medium-term measures that can be taken, and then there are some other issues which we can examine as we go along. So one of the critical programs that has been taken up by the National Rural Livelihood Mission is the Startup Village Entrepreneurship Program, started in 2016-17, and the idea of all these programs is to promote non-farm enterprises, which are about 100,000 in number. And then you have a resource person at the resource person, which are called CRP, Community Resource Person for Enterprise Promotion, which facilitate the enterprises in various ways in terms of bookkeeping, linkage with the banks and marketing support, etc. Then you have a block resource center at which the CRPs are serviced, and then mentorship support is available. We also provide seed capital, and we have provided about Indian rupees 304 crores, or about US $1 million, $40 million in form of community enterprise fund from which these people can draw seed capital for funding of their enterprises. So, as I was mentioning, in terms of the impact of the lockdown on the trading enterprises, the supply chain was broken both for the raw material as well as stagnant backward and forward linkages. And then there were certain products which were prepared for sale during a period. For example, wedding season was in April and May, and then weddings didn't materialize, and therefore the products which were prepared for those occasions, they could not be sold. Some of them would have spoiled, and then you have to carry the inventory for some more periods, so there are losses. And then enterprises which are dealing with the perishable commodities, for example, dairy, obviously you have issues, sweets you couldn't prepare, couldn't sell. Those are the issues. Then the service enterprises have been affected, and certainly in some of the non-Kirana kind of enterprises registered zero revenue during the lockdown. Manufacturing enterprises, including handloom, handicraft, they have prepared, but buyback agreements were not honored, orders were cancelled. And then the market for the discretionary products and services have also come down. But they have to incur costs like rents and interest on loan. So the income that was derived from the business to meet the household expenses, that has been impacted, and I mean, it has been diverted, so therefore the working capital has gone down to some extent. Next slide, please. So if you see in terms of how our self-help groups have come up during the lockdown period, so about 53,000 self-help group participated, and they were able to produce around 16 crores or 160 million masks, about 400,000 liters of sanitizers, about 100,000 liters of hand wash, and they ran about 10,000. So these have resulted in terms about Indian rupees 10,000 per person for these enterprises. Next slide, please. One of the heartening developments during this period is the role that has been played by the business correspondents allied to banks for distribution of cash the last mile. So about 110 million USD, or in terms of Indian rupees, around 830 crores of rupees, they have been disbursed by these business correspondents. That's a very major development in our opinion. They have been able to critically solve some of the bottlenecks which were being faced by the banking enterprises. Then some of them have entered into the food supply chain, particularly vegetable and mango supply chain. Some of them have also entered into home delivery of vegetables. So that gives us some idea as to which are the areas in which these groups can enter. Next slide, please. Some of the factors which have, in our opinion, would have played a role. One is that there is an institutional platform and people grouped together, and then some policy responses have also been taken. For example, moratorium on the loan payment and sanction of new loans, reduction in interest rates, etc. Then some support from our side in terms of the quality standard, advisories, and peers, etc. And the SRLMs leading the efforts of the enterprises on the ground. Next slide, please. So in terms of the way forward that we look to is the new enterprise opportunities are arising in terms of masks, sanitizers, and such other hygiene equipments, consumables, and services. So this need to be latched on to. Then moratorium for existing loans and reduction in the rates of interest. So these are some of the benefits that have been extended. We should assess the impact on business for the next 3 to 6 months, and we plan the business accordingly. At this moment, there is some time which would be taken because we are not very sure as to how the market is going to play out. Today, myself went out to the market and saw very little footfall. So that's a issue which needs to be thought of. We are also cognizant of the fact that many of them operate in the area of food and allied markets, and therefore this market is certainly open. Some discretionary spend would certainly come down, but the kind of food products that our rural enterprises are dealing into, they are not that much affected. So we guess they'll continue to have markets. Then agripreneurship is one area which we feel that has a great potential, more particularly so because of the desire of the key ministries at the Government of India level or at the state level of the need to come together and promote agri-based enterprises on a very large scale, converging the resources from the key ministries like rural development, agriculture, animal husbandry, fisheries, MSME, etc. And large investment schemes have been announced very recently, and that gives us opportunity of doing all of them. We also know that there are chains, food supply chains, etc., would need to be reconfigured, and there we can have space. And then there are enterprises which can apply skills of incoming migrants, for example, apparel cluster, construction groups, etc. Next slide, please. Also, by way of long-term measures, scaling of enterprise activities using the cluster-based approach is one such area which can certainly be taken up. Farmer producers organizations are being promoted on a very large scale, consult with the Agri-Ministry, the Ministry of Food Processing, etc. So we hope that this clusterization, largely in the agri space and also in terms of non-agri space, would yield a great deal of results. Also because of the current sentiment in the country to go vocal for local, so we believe that some of this sentiment can also promote cluster-based activities. Then there are opportunities of cooperating with the e-commerce website, both government and private. Then convergence, I mentioned, public sector as well as corporates who are supporting interventions through us in other areas in which these enterprises could be promoted. Next slide. So some announcements have recently been made. Not all of them would be of help, but we guess that some of the areas which would be of critical interest is the scheme for formalization of micro food enterprises. It has a specific mention of the women collective, so that is one area which we think would be of interest. Then those for street vendors would also be, has a provision of supporting the vendors in the rural and peri-urban areas. And then there are other announcements like collateral-free automatic loans for business, including MSMEs. But we have some reservation as to whether it would be on a very large scale support. Most of it is aimed at the larger among the MSME sectors, and the definition now covers many more such enterprises. And then I mentioned about the e-marketing. And then because of the reconfiguration of the food supply chain, I mentioned because some of the earlier food supply chain like agri, mandis, etc., have now been not only the sale of agri-produce beyond them have been allowed, but also the fact that some of them have become the key hotspots for spread of the COVID. So there is possibility that people might like to sell them. Therefore, we have a great opportunity, provided we are able to pull all these together, couple them with the IT platforms, provide them necessary support by way of exploration of the market, provide them with the necessary liquidity, go the collective way. So this would certainly require rethink, and would all of us, all the players in this space come together, their thinkings are aligned, then we believe that would go a long way in imagining a much larger space for the enterprises. Next slide, if you could come. I think I would have run. So thank you very much for providing me the opportunity for sharing my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sinha. This was fantastic, and hopefully we can meet in person, because I think we'll have all wonderful things to share. We have measures to take forward, very innovative ideas. Actually, we've been thinking along those lines, and there's a lot of things and innovations that we thought of that will be very interesting to apply now, because the future has come much quicker than we thought. Things like e-commerce and other measures for micro enterprise, I think it's excellent initiative. So thank you very much. Without further ado, we'll go to our next panelist, Mr. Harikishore from Kudumbashree, who will talk about the studies adopted by women in key enterprises in Kerala and their response to COVID. Yeah. Welcome, Harikishore.
I'll speak about three angles. One is the key philosophies behind the success of women enterprises in Kerala. We never started by thinking these philosophies, but in the end, when we theorize it, we are able to see that there are three angles. One is the reason for success of micro enterprises, especially in the state of Kerala, as a part of NRLM through Kudumbashree, is the ability to fill in gaps. The women enterprises contributed by filling in gaps by addressing social problems. So they were able to contribute. A couple of examples which our honorable secretaries are already mentioned, that mask was the first entry point. We saw that the surgical mask was not available. It was 2 rupees before COVID, and it was just not available, or it was people were charging 20 to 50 rupees per mask, which was 2 rupees. So at that point of time, whether the thought that there is a gap for mask in the market, and the thought that women enterprises should fill in this gap came, and we thought of taking initiative to stitch mask. And also another angle, another example for this is the filling the social gaps or addressing the social problems is starting of community kitchen. There was a point of time when everyone was thinking of food security. Because of lockdown, whether people will be able to get food, there are people who are destitute, who are vulnerable, will they be able to cook themselves? So the idea of community kitchen started. So in order to fill the gap of addressing food security, we intervened, and women catering groups intervened in convergence with local bodies. We were able to contribute by starting community kitchens. More than 1,300 community kitchens were started in Kerala, and women did their best to provide meals through community kitchens. And also, this was one philosophy, filling the gap, addressing social problems through women enterprises. This was very successful. And now the second aspect is innovation. Always in a problem, we should innovate, and innovations are key to address or bring novel solutions. So one innovation which I could straight away give as an example is a concept called face shield. Somebody introduced this concept to me by saying that there is a face shield which will be good for the doctors. Why don't your enterprise try this? So we learned how to make face shield from a team of doctors. They taught us, and we made this. And Sri Chitra Institute bought 1,500 face shields. And now Government of Kerala gave an order for about 50 lakh rupees for face shields through Health Department. So that innovation, and also now the innovations are coming in mask by contributing designer masks. So anything as an innovation will be a solution in these testing times. So that is the second concept, innovation. And the third concept which our women enterprises adopted is creating opportunities. Filling the gaps, normally, people will look for those who are having leadership skills, or those who can fill the gaps. But creating opportunity is something which we really should take it forward. A lot of opportunities are coming. Like when I saw that there is a need for gowns in medical colleges, we intervened. In addition to mask, our tailoring units can stitch gowns. So we got that opportunity. When there is a Corona Care Center started by government, we saw that there is huge catering opportunity. People need food. So we intervened and said that, why don't you give it to Kudumbashree? Then there was a question of lack of provisions at home. So people were afraid of going to supermarkets, and many people wanted provisions in their doorsteps. So we intervened, and we have something called home shops where people will buy groceries and deliver to the people. So wherever there is an opportunity, we think of an opportunity. There is opportunity for service sector like data entry. There is opportunity where some data entry operators are required, and we fill the gap. There is opportunity for counselors, and we were able to fill the gap. And Supplyco a government department, civil supplies department is supplying kits to people. So there is opportunity for cloth bag, and also there is opportunity for giving the curry powders prepared by enterprise units. So these are the three philosophies through which we operate. One is filling the gap and addressing social problems. Second, success in testing times. And third is, of course, let us not wait for opportunity to come to us. Let us seek opportunity and let us ensure maximum convergence with other departments. So these are the three philosophies. Now, the second part is why we were able to embrace success. Our women enterprises, our SHG groups were able to bring success during these times. There are 2-3 reasons. One reason is, of course, it is actually an empowerment. It is installing a pride in them by saying that, yes, we were able to contribute to the society in these difficult times. We got an opportunity. It's not only doctors, not only policemen, not only those key officials who are in the forefront, but we, the poor women, also got an opportunity. So this fact and this pride that they got when they participated in mass production or community kitchen or any other affiliated activity. So that social contribution, the ability or the opportunity to contribute to the society through self-help group network, that pride is a key factor. Another key factor is the support by officials is another key factors, because mass production is not that easy. Every shop is locked down, every shop is closed. So we have to get special permission from district magistrate to open shop and procure clothes. To bring a cloth at a cheaper rate from neighboring state is really difficult. So the official team includes the community support scheme, as Honorable Secretary Sir mentioned. The entire mechanism was live. So that support system was required for enterprises and SHGs at this time. So that support system was another key factor which enabled our success. And the third key factor is convergence. Convergence in Kerala is mainly with local government department, because there is a very strong local government system, and also convergence with every other department, because Kudumbashree, the women network, is acting as a system for assisting people. Whenever transport departments wants us to start hotels in checkpost, we will converge with that department. So maximum convergence, maximum tie-ups and liaison with departments is another key factor which has led to our success. Now, lastly, so these are the two things, philosophies and the key factors that led to our success. And future plans is just 3 plans. One is that also our Honorable Secretary Sir mentioned, there is huge opportunity in agriculture. Our government of Kerala also announced that there will be a food security campaign focusing on agriculture enterprises, agriculture value chain and all. So we are thinking of focusing on value chain, especially in agriculture and animal husbandry, and also allied activities, where we are thinking of a campaign where those who are starting enterprises may come and start enterprises to use the new opportunities that is created. So agriculture and based enterprises will be the focus. Another strategy for future is reviving enterprises. We feel that let us start new enterprises, of course that is good, but we have about 30,000 enterprises in Kerala, women enterprises, both in service sector, production sector, farm, non-farm, everything put together. So not all enterprises are doing well now. Some of them are closed, some of them lost their raw materials, some of them lost their market, some of them lost their product, and there are challenges. So we have a system of enterprise consultants. Through these enterprise consultants, we are thinking of taking a survey. Suppose in a block, how many enterprises were there? There were 50 enterprises, but 25 are suffering. So by taking time, maybe 3 to 6 months, we will revive those enterprises who are not functioning well, because they are the key people who came forward to start an enterprise. They are still entrepreneurs and they need support. So that is another future area where we are planning to intervene. And the third area is in marketing. We feel that there is a lot of opportunity in marketing, especially home-based marketing, service delivery, product, and collecting the products of our enterprise, making it as a kit and supplying to people at a subsidized rate, and also delivering these to houses, especially in urban areas, and also focusing on that is marketing. And the fourth angle or fourth future plan that may apply only to Kerala is to focus in service sector. There is a lot of opportunity coming in geriatric care, housemaids, and allied sectors, electrician, plumbers, etc. So we are thinking of forming women groups to tap these new opportunities. So these are the few areas. One is agriculture value chain. Second is to revive the existing enterprises which are struggling. Third is to focus on marketing and aggregating the products and selling it through various channels. And fourth is to tap the new opportunities in service sector. So these are the future plans as of now from Kerala. We thank the team for the opportunity given to present our ideas, and we also thank Honorable Secretary Sir for all the support that NRLM is giving to all the states, so that we are able to manage, we are able to sustain the network, the energy of the network together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harikishore. This is very fascinating. Really, I think your three-phase report is excellent, and your recommendations as well, taking for reviving and marketing, all are really great solutions. Love to take this offline with you. Kudumbashree has always been an example of high-quality work with self-help groups and women's collectives. So I'll definitely get back to you. Now we have.
Thank you.
As well, thank you. Really great guest Sumita, who's able to tell us the angle from the social enterprise sector, her artisan women's collectives on the ground. How have they been surviving? How have they been thriving? And how does she see it going forward? Up to you, Sumita. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts. So first I'll start with what has been the impact of lockdown on artisans. Of course, and for our company, which is a social enterprise and which is actually a public limited company with ownership by 2,000 artisans who are also shareholders, and we also work with them to provide employment. So the first major impact was, of course, we had zero sales in April and May, which meant that, our working capital got disrupted a bit. For artisans, what it meant was that they did not get any work. All the artisans we work with work on a piece rate basis. So no work meant no wages, which was really the most distressing thing. Fortunately, most of the artisans we work with, they live and work in the same village because they are in rural areas. They are local residents. And they also have other means of income like small scale agriculture, rain fed maybe, small animal rearing, as well as things like poultry. So they are not 100% dependent on craft for their livelihood. And it is supplemented by other occupations, which is the good thing about the Indian rural economy. For some of our artisans who were from other states, a very small number, who have come from other states to live and work in one of our units in Rajasthan. We had to make available relief and give cash into their accounts for their daily needs because they had to pay rents and they had other necessities, which being away from home, you can call them migrant workers, being away from home, they were especially vulnerable. So we decided that we would give them cash benefit into their accounts. Over the last month, some villages in Rajasthan at least have started where we work. Most of our work is in Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh. So some of the villages, the rural employment guarantee work has started. Local NGOs have chipped in with relief, but main concern remains getting back to work. So this, I can say, has been the impact. The next I'll come to is, how did we deal with it in Rangasutra? So Rangasutra, actually, we are spread out again, across 9 different locations. We work, as I said, mostly in rural areas. Our offices are located in districts or even down at the block level. And so in that sense, that initially we decided that we would focus on relief, but also keep revival in mind. So the first thing we did with one of our districts, in one of our main districts, which is Bikaner, is we collaborated with the local district authorities who asked us to make masks because we had a large tailoring unit. So it was quite a campaign. We made like 35,000 masks in a matter of about 2 weeks. And so it kept everyone busy with, it had a double impact. You know, the artisans kept busy, they got money to make the masks, and at the same time, the masks were distributed by the district government, the local government, to health workers and general public, you know, in the initial days of the lockdown. What we also did was we retained close connection with our artisans. We assigned one staff member, so we have 100 permanent regular staff members, employees, and as I said, we work with close to, well, 2,000 of them are shareholders, artisans, but we work with close to 3,000 artisans across the country. So we assigned one staff member to every one village, and you know, to just generally keep connected, to find out how they are feeling, what we can do to keep them motivated. We said, okay, you can't get work now, but you design your own masks, you create new embroidery motifs, you know, spend some, whatever free time you may have in creating something new. We also started making protective equipment. Like we said, like apart from the masks, we also, you know, made sanitizers. We have a little lab because we do dyeing in our, you know, fabric dyeing. So we have a little lab, and we created, you know, local sanitizing kits, and we did all the, we sort of got ourselves preparing ourselves for when the lockdown would open. Another thing that we did, which is really crucial, and I think that is something we have learned in this lockdown and we plan to continue it later, is the increased use of digital technology, both for internal communication, to keep our team connected, because we were all in isolation and we are spread out all across the country. So to keep team motivation up, we also organized internal training workshops on different topics like design, sampling, record keeping, costing. We kept ourselves connected as much as possible with artisans, although many of them do not have, you know, laptops and access to internet. Most of them don't have this facility of logging into a Zoom call like we have, but we tried to keep connected through WhatsApp wherever possible. We also kept a close connection with the world outside, especially with our buyers. As one gentleman mentioned earlier, that, you know, some artisan groups have had cancellation of orders. So this is something we worked very closely with our main buyers, and we ensured that no order is cancelled. A few of them have been postponed, but we really focused our energies on convincing our buyers that, look, you cannot at this point, please do not cancel orders. And thankfully, I'm happy to say we were successful with that. We kept in close contact with our funders, bankers, etc., customers and other partners. Of course, we put in cost-cutting measures like our salary cuts. We had to do, you know, for a couple of months, for May and for June, we had to sort of get a little, you know, figure out how to manage our resources. And we also asked our landlords for discounts on rent. Some of them agreed, some of them did not agree, but that's still work in progress. Most importantly, I think another important point was that a lot of artisan groups and the whole design fraternity and NGOs have been networking with each other under different banners to support each other, you know, to support artisans groups, for example, to try and sell their products online, to buy raw material from each other. Supposing there's a handloom group, and then maybe a garment group is helping out by buying the fabric that the handloom group has. So that has been one positive outcome of this, is really the increased networking to support each other across this community of artisans and designers who are connected to craft work, as well as NGOs on the ground. So if I say that, if we go to what has enabled us to remain resilient, because as I said, the things we really focused on was how do we remain resilient? How do we ensure that, okay, so we don't, we may not be able to sell anything, we don't have any income from sales, but we can do other things to keep ourselves strong, to strengthen ourselves, to empower our team, to empower our artisans, so that when we get back to work, we can get back with, with more reflection, with more energy, and ready to make the most of what the next part offers to us. So the key, I would, if I would go into what have been the main reasons for enabling us to remain resilient. One is, of course, the main reason is, the ownership by artisans and by the Rangasutra team. The feeling that this is our enterprise, and it's not, together we have to go through these difficult times, and together we can come out of this, of the difficult times. So it's not that everyone is waiting just for the senior management to find all the solutions and to, being passive about it. No, everyone is equally engaged because they have a stake in the enterprise. They have a stake in keeping the company going because it belongs to all of us. The other thing is our philosophy, which is basically, keeping artisans at the center, because the overall mission of Rangasutra is to ensure livelihood for rural artisans. So this means that it is not only artisans who depend on us, the Rangasutra team, but we too depend on artisans. It is a mutual dependence. It is an interconnectedness that we realize and we feel very strongly. And this, I think, has helped us, has made us cohesive and, helped us support each other. The third thing, and I think this is an opportunity for all of us present today at this seminar, at this conference, is that our rural base. So because we are based in rural India, I think it is a strength rather than a weakness. And it is more holistic, and the people are not just dependent on craft for income, but they can fall back on other occupations. Then we have small craft production centers, so we've not invested in large infrastructure, large factories, large heavy equipment, expensive equipment. The fourth is that flexibility. Working from home is possible for most of us, although we do work in our villages also from craft centers, but working from home is possible. And we have already started working from home and working in many of our centers which are not in red zones and where it's possible to work. Thankfully, both in all our centers, wherever we work, it is possible to work now. In this last 15 days, we have started work. Another important point is craft and handlooms are by definition slow-paced. This takes time, cannot be hurried. So it wasn't so difficult for us to be flexible and to adapt to this new pace of working, which is slower, which is not so quick, fast, large numbers, but going slowly and steadily. One more point I have to mention is partnerships and collaborations are what really enabled us to stay afloat, both with buyers, funders, artisans, and the groups. And I think last I should definitely say that the handloom and handicrafts industry in rural India is ideal for creating sustainable livelihoods, and including giving work to some migrant laborers who have come back from cities, because many of them are skilled artisans in different ways. And I think here more collaboration with government. I'm making use of the fact that there are many government representatives here. more collaboration and partnership would be very welcome to ensure that, more people get work in rural India instead of having to migrate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sumita. That's quite interesting to see the flexibility and the options taken, from your artisans to go through this crisis. There is one question I think I'll ask you right away, Sumita, because I think I'm looking through the question. One question they had specifically was on the cash report to migrant workers. I think you had mentioned that there was some funds offered. Maybe you can answer that question right away directly.
Well, that was something we did out of our own resources. We had 50 migrant workers working in one of our centers. So we decided that we would make available cash to them so that they were not desperate to get back home.
Oh, okay, great.
Back home, they stayed there.
Great, thanks. I hope that answers the question. I thought that was a simple one to get through. Thank you. And our last panelist, to Mr. Raman Wadhwa, I'll leave it up to you to tell us from your state the coping strategies and the insight you've gained so far and the learnings that you can share with us on what you're seeing from the ground. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. My heartfelt thanks to MRD, Lead at Krea, and the World Bank for this opportunity. We all know that COVID pandemic has created severe challenges for businesses with significant job losses, disruptions, and uncertain road ahead. Nevertheless, what Secretary Sir has also said that there has been a lot of disruptions in all kinds of businesses, though he was of the opinion that in the rural areas it was pretty less. But what we feel is that it has been a complete lockdown in the enterprises per se, be it a haircutting salon, to be specific of some of the examples, bangle shops, cafes, tea stalls, even the Ajivika Express, to name the few. And some like Kirana shops also initially suffered a setback because there was a large input supply gap in these shops and enterprises. What we see is in MP, when we found that there are problems of movement of goods, transportation, it is open at the national level, but it was in the closed sector, means transportation was also disrupted, and the seed business was lost. So what actually is that it's not only the supply side, demand side also went haywire, and the demand for vegetables, flowers, that is to say whatever is at the village level, the agriculture enterprises also, they also suffered badly. And in case of EGs, I would say that the milk value chains, which were functioning at 150% capacity, immediately came down from 30% or even 20%. One of my PG's producer enterprise in one of the districts started just 3 days ago. That was functioning with 12,000 litre milk per day, and it rose only to 800 litres of milk. So what has actually thought to be in Madhya Pradesh was that there was a need to stabilize and adapt to the evolving situation and prepare some kind of road to recovery. So it is always there that women have an innate capability to come out of poverty, but innate capability to run the enterprise during this situation was also found. I would reinforce what Harikishore sir was saying, that they had the ability to fill in the gaps, starting of community kitchens or masks, or even coming out with innovations. It was also said by Sumita ji that the idle labs of dying labs were used for sanitizing. Same thing happened in Madhya Pradesh also. We had an edge that almost 1.5 years ago, we had a huge work of uniform stitching for the school students in Madhya Pradesh. So that infrastructure was fortunately used at a large scale to produce the mask on one side. We our state SAG members have been able to produce some 10 million masks during this period. Precisely 1.04 crores of masks have been produced, and it has been sold in various government agencies, be it the police department or the health, or now in MTNRAGA there is a big order inclusive of these things. And same is for the sanitizers or small things like hand wash and the soaps, etc. Though these things sound very simple, but there has been a big kind of thought going in that how to support, because you need to engage the people. So what MP did was that state level initiative was taken to have some kind of economic planning immediately, that we need to support our SHGs in a manner that they are able to have some kind of enterprise continuously with them. So, gap of backward linkage for supply of inputs was also supported with the help of the district administration, that raw material for these things are made available to the community. And what kind of production support was required? Small kind of trainings were provided to them with the help of the health department. Fortunately, not precisely the PPE kits which are there for the health department. We trained them to create PPE kits for the frontline workers, the policemen, etc. And the government, the PHQ had given us an order of some 100,000 PPE kits. So during this period, a mix of the state level strategy, small capacity building, facilitating the procurement and production systems was done, so that our people, our SHGs are able to come and work for the community system. And also, I would say that during this period, government also started online registration of women who could make the mask. Then the long-term strategy, mid-term strategy, which the government has taken in Madhya Pradesh, is the stitching of uniforms is again being given. So the stitching sector overall has been one of the focus. Another focus was on having partnerships in other enterprises. During this period, we had partnership with the Women and Child Development Department, so that we can supply good sanitary napkins to the community through the Women and Child Development Department. Then the CRPs, there has been a huge workforce who is there. So DESCOM has come forward in the 16 districts that for meter reading, providing of connections and bill recoveries. For these things, recently, just 3 days ago, an MOU has been processed for these things to help the women at the lower level. And also, it's not left that okay, that government supplies are enough. Even the service sector, the BC Sakhi, I was going through the data during the last year when we compare. Funding is also important. So BC Sakhi have been able to support the systems at large. Our last year business during these 2 months was around 17 crores, and now it is around 65 crores or so. Almost 4 times jump was there in these 2 months. So there has been a push both in the demand and supply side to make funds reach to the community. So the social sector, which Mr. Harikishore was saying, that you need to have some kind of filling of gaps. So the banking sector has been able to reach to the community through these DC cities. Then the innovations and creating opportunities in the form of say packaging of goods or supplying of food items, and in all the districts in a planned manner, delivery of vegetables have been done through the vegetable e-carts. We have not e-carts, vegetable carts we have started with. So that is the process MP did, and to be more think that it's in the long term, government or the SRLM has thought that new initiatives which are coming up, say masks earlier have been restricted to some green kind of mask or blue which were required in the health or in the college department. Now the time has come that we are planning that schools are likely to open maybe 3 months ahead, my fingers crossed, but then we need to have some small size of masks. Face shields is another thing which is required, and improving supply chains for which SAG members have been trained so that the delivery systems are improved altogether. And finally, I would say in the long run, because we need to think of having clusterization of products. It may be either in handloom sectors or in the case of other artisans. We have been talking about having a cluster development of say jackets in our areas, or a cluster development of other non-farm products like metal products we are planning to have, and therein training is to be done for the communities. This is planned. Industrialized skilling is required. Specifications are to be thought of, which is there. I can recall when I'm talking about specifications, when our SAG members were being asked to prepare the protective gears for the policemen. So we thought it's not that easy. So frames were prepared, even how to put in the elastics. It's an art that needs to be explained properly to the people. So these are the small things. It may seem that during these COVID times, how do we do these things? Actually, that kind of help came in from the district administration, as our colleague from Kudumbashree also said, that we have to take permissions from district magistrates, we have to take their rules. So it's a kind of gel between the admin, the social organizations, SRL, both part of the government, to come up and fight situations in these pressing times. And when we talk about saying that was it only for the tribal areas or non-tribal, our experience has been that in tribal areas it's not been more there has been not much problem. But otherwise, in non-tribal areas, the supply chains have been affected. So this is all I have to talk about what MP has done, and I've been asked also that we are getting over by the time. So I would say that some kind of, only the last point I would like to add is that we need to think of a financial cushion, whether in the form of more investment in it, or having refinancing what was told by Honorable Secretary Sir, that top-up loans are required, and timely payments to the community should reach so that they are motivated that we are having money in our hand and our businesses are running properly and we are earning some. Thank you so much. This is all about what we have been doing in MP.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wadhwa. I think this is quite interesting. I think we're going towards the end of our webinar. There are a few questions that remain unanswered, and I'll leave it to the various panelists to hop in a sense. One seems to be prominent in terms of the financing of it. One of the questions is in terms of like giving aid is fine, giving finance to help is fine. there's a concern about offering something during this crisis period that has an holistic approach, in the sense that you want to help them, but you also want to make sure that it doesn't prevent them or spoil the scenario after. One of the examples were given in the sense that there's new marketing. The banks are marketing a new term loan for product to self-help groups, but now they're neglecting to operate their existing cash credit account. So in terms of offering relief, you want to make sure that it doesn't go over the operations before, and you're able to get back to normal or even modify or something like that. So a better holistic approach. The other question in terms of finance was as well is that there is a moratorium on the loans, but is there a way to also have waivers or something like that on the interest amount, because that is still accumulating. So they will have to pay for it after. The second question as well, this seems to be two types of question. Those are the finance one, and the other one is on the entrepreneurship spirit. So I think in light of having seen a lot of the resilience and the efforts and the quick flexibility of the self-help groups, it was noted that so far a lot of the initiatives for entrepreneurship for women were sort of on pilot mode. So my second line of question for the panelists would be, is there a way that we can really kickstart and scale up and go beyond a pilot mode and make entrepreneurship very mainstream among the women's collective? So I'll open questions for the first one on the financial side, looking at the moratorium and interest as well as the holistic approach to relief. And after that, we can get on to the other. So whoever wants to speak first, I think it's an open panel. It was not necessarily specific to any panelist yet.
So let me talk a little bit in terms of social protection. I can be brief, and I can also call on a colleague of mine who, Gayatri Acharya, if there's more details that need to come in. The bank has been involved very closely with the government of India on on the responses to the crisis in a couple of areas, including the immediate health response as a first wave, but the second wave has been looking at strengthening the existing social protection system, looking for convergence across the system as well, and ensuring that it's, and working to find ways to make it available to different communities and different players within the community, very much keeping in mind the critical point that you have highlighted that I think has come through the questions in terms of being consistent, but also doing it in a way that supports the underpinnings of the existing programs in place. Let me explain a little bit more. It is very much about recognizing the unusual circumstances we're in, that this is a crisis, and that there is need in some way for response to how the crisis has impacted, but not to do it in a way that undermines the entrepreneurship, the nature of the kind of empowerment that the whole platform has put in place. So one of the critical elements is to make sure that I'm struggling a little bit in terms of my words this morning. I apologize. The announcements of the different waves of support that have come through from the government side as well, in terms of the economic stimulus, the social protection, is finding ways to ensure that the informal sector and micro enterprises, both rural and urban, can have access to the same kind of support that's being provided to the more formalized sectors, to other parts of the supply chain. So this is something that the bank has been working on. Still discussions are underway on this. This is something that is very much led by the government side of things, though, to ensure that there is this convergence across the programs that are being put in place. And I think this is critical when you are looking at nascent private sector actors. We are seeing that the government has stepped in to provide sometimes it's working capital support, sometimes it's support through the different existing social protection programs, but that has to be the core of what's being provided, while recognizing that we are in unusual times. Let me maybe turn quickly, see if Gayatri would like to come in and expand on this a little bit. Gayatri, are you there? Is that possible that we can bring her in?
Just a minute. Yeah, I think she's coming. Yeah. Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Yes, Kathryn. Yeah.
Thank you. Good evening to everybody, and thank you very much for all the excellent presentations and this rich discussion. I agree that one of the most important agendas that I think the NRLM has been promoting for quite some time is, in fact, to get increased convergence between the programs. And now that we're in this current period, certainly the social assistance efforts that we are financing, but the government is also putting together into one coherent package, means that households, especially rural households, but also urban poor households, will be able to get a critical level of social assistance that fundamentally could change their welfare. So while there are multiple programs, they are not always reaching the same target households. And so the question certainly from a welfare economics perspective is what is the critical mass that you need in order to push you fundamentally over the poverty line and no longer even in a vulnerable position, right? So to get you beyond vulnerability, so that when there is an impact like this, the chances that you fall back from being vulnerable down below the poverty line should be lower. So I think it is very critical that all of these points that the government has been talking about for quite some time of convergence may finally, be getting to the point where we are providing just that critical amount of assistance per household. If the question was about whether or not we should now convert the SAG loans into grants, the question here is really one of the end game. What is the fiscal discipline that we have been trying to build, the government has been trying to build, lots of non-government actors have been trying to build over time? Is that the solution to sort of remove the fiscal discipline? Is it in fact even what the SAGs themselves might want? Because they are also extremely committed to this type of financial system. So it's a difficult question to answer. The gut reaction may be, yes, let's remove this burden on them, but it may not be the long-term solution, and it may fundamentally change current behaviors where we know that the social action, the collective action works because there is a reliance on each other, because there is a trust that is built over time. So not as straightforward as saying that an individual's loan could be forgiven. So it's quite a different question when we're talking about continuing to build social capital. I see a comment from Chotan saying that the question was not understood, and I'd be more than happy to try and answer the question correctly if I have misunderstood. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Gayatri and Kathryn. I think these are actually always complex issues to A, ask, and B, to answer on such forums, but it's great to start, at least having them emerge, and then we can discuss after. Then I'll just quickly go through the last range of questions. One seems to be a prominent one, looking at the time where the self-help group women have their capability in running businesses, which is showcased during this crisis time. What interventions will the government do to get them out of pilot mode? Because women are run under government capability for businesses, but there's a way to get them accelerated. And I think, Mr. Sinha, that would be great to hear your views. It was nice to see the emergent results, even from how women became more profitable and operational as VCs, but as well, how can this prompt in a recovery period, really going through true enterprise creation and job creation? Up to you, Mr. Sinha. Yeah.
I think like any other question, this does not have a very straight and a very clear-cut answer, textbook answer. I think one of the important things which I feel and often discuss with our colleagues is that the enterprise promotion, particularly the non-farm enterprise, has largely gone the way of grant-based development. So this is not a very supportable proposition over a long run if you want to expand them on a very large scale. So that we have to find an appropriate mix of grant and which should largely go in terms of mobilizing them into groups, building their capacity in terms of being able to understand the accounts, finance, and all other matters. And then, the support that the program and the government should mobilize is in terms of lower cost of financing. I mean, I don't have a very straight answer at this moment, but if by an appropriate negotiation with the DFS and other actors who are NRBI and who control the space, if we can get them to lend to them at a reasonable cost, that's one set of issues. The second set of issues is to clusterize them. I think the current level of enterprises largely operate on a sole lone ranger kind of a thing. So there is little that you can do. So unless you clusterize, I mean, of course, we can support trading kind of enterprises, but enterprises which make impact and which can be supported to fulfill a critical area of supply chain, value chain, there you need critical mass, and the cluster is an appropriate strategy, in my opinion. Then the linkage with the e-market players so to open up new markets is another area. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of food supply chains are getting disturbed. So this is another area where we could, with appropriate IT-based interventions, we could bring these collectives to marketing of their foods. Also, I mean, I feel that the critical value that when collectives bring from the rural area is that they are very close to the market, I mean production centers. So as you increase production of and have a diversified portfolio, and then you clusterize in form of POs and other production groups, then you are able to move up the value chain. So here are some of my preliminary thought at a question which does not admit of very straightforward answers.
This is great, Mr. Sinha. I think it's really not an easy task for the government to, undertake such a big initiative. But I think the success we've seen so far merits a lot of applause and things like that. And the situation in COVID also helps us, gain more insights into it. I guess then it's a great time to bring Sumita for another question, sort of like the counterpart of the government sector. Is one of the questions is, since the business environment has changed due to the pandemic, will there be an impact on collective business ownership? So you have a collective business ownership which is not government based in a sense. So we can offer the contrast to both.
So I personally think that collective businesses or social businesses are more resilient, because our DNA is not just focus on profit, but it has equal emphasis on social impact and social good. So in that sense, I think we are in a good position to remain resilient. Short answer.
In fact, Saron, we both come to the same point: clusters, groups, large collectives. Whether you think from a private sector perspective or the government sector perspective, we feel
That's great then. It means both are aligned in the same direction. Yeah. Great. Thanks, Mr. Singh. So I'll close with, I also want to make sure that there's scope for Harikishore also to answer, and Raman, there's a few questions left. So one, Harikishore, is there was a question on talking more about the philosophies of Kudumbashree in terms of the key factors you mentioned, and can you expand on this in light of COVID priorities? Yeah.
Yeah, basically, I saw the question in Q&A. I'll answer by typing that. Basically, the philosophies which I mentioned is, one is innovate, one is fill in the gaps and address all the social problems, And the third philosophy is keep on finding new opportunities. Opportunities will not come. We should keep on finding new opportunities. Then the second angle which I spoke was about the key factors, which he asked in the question. The key factors are, of course, one is the pride of the self-help group and enterprises, so that they were able to contribute. That pride is taking them forward. Second key factor is the convergence of the officials and the support of the officials and all the mechanisms, because enterprise by themselves may not be able to sail through these tough times. They need a lot of supports and handholding. And the third key factor which I mentioned was convergence with the local bodies in Kerala and also convergence with other departments. These are the key factors that led to our success. And maybe I'll type it as an answer to his question also, so that he can record it throughout. I hope it's fine.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have a flow of questions, those are answered or not. So thanks for again, like saying it verbally. Lastly, Mr. Raman, there is a question on migrants and the convergence with the government. So a lot of them are seeking jobs in regular scheme. And there is a question also, public works in rural areas, and also focus on setting up infrastructure in rural areas for enterprise development in collaboration with other ministries, government and department at state levels. So what is your views on the migrant situation and the convergence, the collaboration on that one from your state? Yeah.
State of Madhya Pradesh, precisely Nagendra, has given a big support to the migrant laborers. The number of migrant laborers or the number of persons, the laborers who were involved in the scheme earlier were hardly 9 lakhs, and today during this period 23 lakh laborers are there who are working in Nagendra scheme, and it is a record as far as the state is concerned over a period of 3 years. Now, when they are saying that, are there any support provided for rural areas in the enterprise sector? Yes. With Nagendra, one thing is that a government order has been issued that masks for the laborers will be procured from the enterprises which are of the SAGs. So one is that one start, which is everywhere. Next is that we have come up with a new scheme, which is phase 1 and phase 2 of cow sheds. In Hindi, we call it the Gaushalas. These are to be developed by Nagendra and are to be managed by the SHG members. As of now, 1109 these cow sheds, Gaushalas have been approved, and some 385 are being managed. Because I had an opportunity to work for Nagendra, and also recently it has been decided that the small godowns and the cattle sheds, they are also to be given to Nagendra by the Nagendra to be managed and for the these enterprise promotion to the SCG members. It cannot be just enterprise promotion altogether, but it's a gel between Nagendra and MPSRLM. Further, with the support of the CFT project which we are having and are coming up with the CFP, the new one, lot of assetization of things which are required by SCG members. There is altogether a complete convergence between Nagendra and the SCG members for enterprise promotion in for the asset creation, say, because it works more on the waterworks or the NRM activity. So state has taken a call, and it's a very good initiative that has been started in last couple of months, and it was reinforced more during these COVID times. And lastly, one more thing, which is the nurseries. Some 313 nurseries, that is one in each block, have been approved for SCG members, and they are to work on these. They have to operate and build these nurseries, and there is a complete coordination between these two departments of our ministry who work jointly. And this is how we are looking. We thought that some 600 crores of Nagendra, almost the same amount which is my budget as an SRLM is concerned, will be taken from Nagendra. And fortunately, this has come up under the leadership during this time. So rural enterprises, if we say, and the infrastructure setting through MG Narega has been largely held in state of Madhya Pradesh. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raman. I hope they answered that question that was asked. So we're a little bit past 7 o'clock, and I thank everyone for their patience. It's always been wonderful to connect and to hear different views. Unfortunately, I think our World Bank colleagues had to leave, but I want to heartily thank you all, the panelists. If there's one closing word that would describe the next few months' steps to do within all your respective work, I'll just do one last round to see what would be that closing remark in a sense. Yeah. So maybe on to you, Sumita. I'll go this way. Yeah. Hello. Yeah.
So for us, I think basically what we are going to keep focusing on is how do we continue to remain resilient? At the same time, what all can we do to become more flexible, to become more quick, agile, so that we can bounce back into work as soon as possible and, get back to work essentially.
Fantastic. Thanks. How about you, Mr. Wadhwa? Mr. Raman Wadhwa? Yeah.
I will say that the supports which are designed will help the businesses stabilize, adapt an evolving situation, and in preparation for getting back on the road for recovery. So what is more important is that back to road of recovery is would be the tagline with these rural people, the communities which will be out there.
Okay, thank you very much. And on to you, Mr. Harikishore. Hello? Maybe one last word? Maybe not there, yeah. Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, basically, continuously handhold. That is this is not a 1 month or 3 months or 6 months job. This is life is changed and it's a different time. So continuous support, hand-holding, and continuously adopting and adapting new strategies depending on the problems is the way forward. That's what we feel.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Sinha, I leave you with the last word to guide us all and the first webinar.
I think the point which was mentioned by Hari is what I'll also echo, because these are difficult times, and these difficult times don't admit very straightforward copybook answers. So whatever works, whichever partners you can gather together, so these will help us sell through being sensitive to the stakeholders that we serve, working with them, and then continuously adapting our solutions, our offerings for their survival and their growth, being sensitive to the market, evolving market, and then also working with them to letting them stay safe and yet continue to produce, continue to sell, and continue to move forward the agenda of opening off the economy to bring to full production. These are some of the thoughts which we have.
Great, wonderful. Those are great words to finish the webinar. And without further ado, I thank you wholeheartedly, everybody, for taking the time to discuss and to make the first webinar series a success. And I invite you, everyone, for the next one. And thank you very much, and everyone have a nice evening. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.